Welcome, everyone, to the Insurance Perspectives podcast. This is part 2 of our series on InsuredMine. On today's show, we have Tucker Hood and Rahim Virani.
Great to be here, Kenny.
If you missed part 1 in our series on InsuredMine, please go back and give it a listen to hear more from Tucker. For part 2, we turn to a mutual customer of HawkSoft and InsuredMine's to learn how InsuredMine is used inside a real independent agency. Rahim Virani is president of Texan Insurance in Houston, Texas. Rahim has been president of Texan Insurance for over a decade, and Texan Insurance has actually been with HawkSoft for slightly longer than that. They started using our system back in 2008. We're grateful for 15 years of being partners. I don't want to make any customers listening to this paranoid, but it's rather safe to assume that certain agencies using HawkSoft have reputations within our company. My script here says to pause to make Rahim sweat a bit while he's thinking about what
Okay.
I'm about to
Yeah,
say.
go ahead.
But sincerely, Texan Insurance, under Rahim's guidance, is viewed within HawkSoft as an agency to pay attention to. How they approach their business, how they think about their workflows, and how they push boundaries of technology are all of great interest to us. Your ears probably burn more often than not, because we do talk about you a lot. Now, what I'll say is I actually I don't hide, but we'll say periodically I do try to avoid accidental run-ins with Rahim's right-hand technologist, Jordan. It's a fear built out of respect because I think that you guys are two of the sharpest minds in the independent agency space. And if I'm not prepared for that conversation with my A game, it's not going to go well for me. Now, hopefully, I'm prepared for this conversation, but also, fortunately, I don't have to do a lot of talking in this part. Rahim, you're in the hot seat today, not me, hopefully. So I'd like to dive into our customer questions.
I'm glad you said you run only when Jordan's around and not with me. That that
Yeah,
that makes me feel a little bit better. So thank you for that.
run towards you, away from Jordan.
Got it.
Um, so just like in part 1 where we got InsuredMine's story and why they exist, I would love to know more about Texan Insurance. I'd love to know, how long the agency has been around, how many people work there, what do you guys specialize in, how did you come to be president of the organization, all those fun things. I'd love to know your story.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thanks, Kenny. Appreciate the warm introduction as well. Yeah, so I got involved in the insurance business about a little over 10 years ago, maybe 11 years now. My brother and I, we are business partners, and we decided to buy an insurance agency with no background in insurance. So the original owners of Texan Insurance were Pat and Jan. They had been agents probably since the 80s. And so we were fortunate enough to get into a relationship with them and buy their agency back in 2012. And so that's kind of how we kind of got our start. I was actually an attorney prior to getting into the insurance space and realized that I just didn't want to do that anymore. And it didn't take long for me to figure that out. I wish I'd probably figured that out a little bit before I spent all that time and energy on law school, but things happen, and I think it was a good experience nonetheless. But I think it set me up for a great career in insurance,
Mm-hmm.
being able to understand insurance law and contract law and all of that. So I think it still gave me a good background and a good foundation to build off of. So yeah, so when we got into the insurance space in 2012, they had a team of about 8 people at that point. And over the last 10 years, we've been able to steadily grow that agency, and we've got a team of about 85 employees now.
Wow.
We've done about 6 or 7 acquisitions during that time period. And so a lot of our growth has come via those acquisitions, but also just growing the business organically through
Mm-hmm.
our relationships that we have here locally. Um, so yeah, I mean, in terms of our focus, I would say we're about 90% personal lines, 10% commercial. And hopefully in the next 5 to 10, I'd love to be able to say we're more, 60/40.
Sure.
So a big focus of our agency kind of moving forward is to really grow the commercial side of the business while maintaining our trajectory on the personal line side.
Wow. To go from 8 to 80 plus in 10 years, that's really an impressive feat. Um, and I love that you know your numbers. It's always it's the Shark Tank effect, I think, on the world is I think everybody knows to know their numbers when they come in, and so I appreciate that you had that. And I'm I'm really impressed that an organization of your size has grown through the personal lines channel, because I know a lot of agencies struggle with that. Um, Within personal lines, are you a full service shop? Do you focus auto, home, those things?
Yeah, we do all lines on the personal line side. We try to sell into the household and just
Hmm.
make sure that we're tackling all lines of business. So, our relationships really lean on the home side, and then we
Hmm.
try to back into to everything else. So luckily, I think once you're able to, get that trust with the client with their home insurance, it's a little bit easier to kind of talk to them about the other lines of insurance. So. I wish I can take credit for that, but that's what the old agency owners did, and we just
Gotcha.
saw that that system was working and said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Hmm.
So we just kept rolling with that, and then we just added our flavor along the way.
Excellent. So it's not it's not the biggest leap from law to insurance. There's a lot of parallels there. It's similar to like finance and insurance. Um, there's a lot of kind of overlap in that Venn diagram. But for you, and perhaps for you and your brother, what gets you excited about insurance, and what has kept you dedicated to it for 10 years?
Yeah, good question. I think the great thing about insurance is that no 2 days have ever been the same. Especially for an agency like ours who's looking to grow, looking to kind of be on the cutting edge of things. Being able to kind of withstand the ups and downs of the industry.
Hmm.
Typically we've been on this really great trajectory for the last 10 years, or 8 or 9 years. And then obviously the world has changed in the last few. And I think that really was eye-opening for a lot of folks and a lot of people in the space. But I think when I see that kind of turmoil or that kind of upheaval, I get really excited about it just because I think in those moments and in those times of change, I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Hmm.
And so I think being able to withstand some of that turmoil, I think really makes you stronger as an agency, makes you stronger as a business. And so that really gets me pumped up. I think that's a big part of it. And then I'd say, we talked a lot about relationships on the last podcast, and I think
Hmm.
that's really what this comes down to. I really enjoy working with our employees, helping them become better in their roles. I love working with clients. I've started to do that a lot more recently, and it's something different that I haven't done
Hmm.
really for a while. And so, being in a position to where I can kind of focus on the commercial side of things and start really seeing how things are operating now from the ground level, I
Hmm.
think gives me a lot of energy, a lot of excitement to kind of really see how I can really make an impact in a different way than I've had in the last 8 or 9.
That's awesome. And I love that kind of attention to continuous improvement and staying engaged. Um, you kind of hinted at this origin story in part one, and you had mentioned that you had spent about 6 months talking with InsuredMine CEO Roshan about InsuredMine. Um, and so I would love to know what what finally got you over the line, or maybe two things here. So, what were you looking for when you first encountered InsuredMine, and then also with that, what eventually was the catalyst for you to say like, okay, let's do this?
I honestly wasn't really looking for anything, just because I was kind of down my own path at that point. And I think that's why Roshan and I were talking for so long. I just wanted to learn from him, really, and see kind of what road they were going down. In my infinite wisdom, um, thought I was smart enough and brave enough to build my own CRM.
Mm,
And so I started to go down that path with Salesforce, and probably, you know, got pretty far. I mean, our sales team was on it. We had kind of built some integrations with HawkSoft that were, not automated, but worked,
mm,
and did all the things that we needed to do. But I got to a point where every time I needed to make a change, it was taking 3 months
mm,
and lots of dollars to kind of make it happen. And so I was like, there's got to, I was like, there's got to be a better way.
mm,
This just can't be the way that things need to happen. And so I think that's when the CRM word was really becoming more popular in our insurance space at that point, and a lot of systems were coming out there. And so I was really just, observing, and really, just kind of standing on the sidelines and just kind of looking around just to see what I could find and seeing what the players were doing and how they were doing it. And so when I looked at, all the different options out there, I was kind of looking, I had a vision in mind because I saw what was capable within Salesforce with the ecosystem that they have. I mean, it's obviously very incredible and very
mm,
powerful, what you can do within Salesforce, but obviously that bridging and that integration with AMS is very challenging. And I think at the end of the day, having it's one thing to have a CRM that has all the bells and whistles, but it's a whole different thing when you can get everybody to work together seamlessly and have everything communicate with each other in a very instant fashion. I think it just changes the game.
mm,
And so that's kind of what was the main thing was I was looking for, was just looking for a way to be able to say, is this is there a simpler way to kind of make all that kind of connect and work? And so um, that was kind of the start. I think with Salesforce we were able to um, see what we wanted from a process perspective. We were able to get better visibility into our sales team and their metrics and their productivity. And then the automation side was really, really cool, in terms of what we were able to do. And so,
mm,
in a system, when I finally made the decision, like I didn't want to keep putting good dollars after bad dollars or bad dollars after good dollars. I was like, all right,
mm,
well, let me try to find a system that can do a lot of the same things that I'm having to do, but try to find it for uh, a more efficient, more cost-effective way to make that happen.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, and Tucker, you had also brought up Salesforce as something that agencies maybe pursue, and it comes up a lot. Is that um, it, generally speaking in this podcast, we don't bring up competition, but Salesforce is going to be the elephant in the room for any CRM conversation. So, is that a common comparison or scenario that you find yourself in, working with agencies that have maybe, I don't want to say tricked because I imagine Salesforce has a pretty good legal team, but um, enticed by the sirens at Salesforce into pursuing that product, um, that requires a lot of that hands-on work? Do you see that a lot?
So what we see is nobody gets fired by buying IBM used to be the saying, right? So a lot of these big agencies, like nobody gets fired by buying Salesforce, and maybe not applicable to an agency that's less than 500 employees, but it's a safe bet, for hey, a CRM that works. Now it can do everything you want. It really can. Like Salesforce is built to be able to be built to what you want it to be. Now, how deep are your pockets? How much time do you have becomes the question. And a lot of agencies don't want to be spending 10,000 plus a month or a quarter to make developments. The licensing cost is a big thing, and there's three big. It's not insurance specific. It does not integrate well to agency management systems, and you'll find that the third part is you're going to end up piecing together another 4 or 5 pieces of software around Salesforce to get to where an InsuredMine can get. So, it's Salesforce is a great program. I've used it 4 years of my career, but when it comes to an independent agency, um, they typically will look for something like an InsuredMine because of some of those reasons.
I
Yeah,
definitely
I think
appreciate that.
you
Thank you.
hit the nail on the head. I mean, it definitely was trying to piece together a bunch of different things to make it work the way that you need it to work. And then I think that the sell that that really enticed me was how customizable Salesforce was, right?
Mm,
It's like it's a blank canvas. You can make it whatever you want, but I think in order to do that, you really have to have a really clear vision and a clear technology understanding of what the system can do and what the system can't do, because there are still some things that it cannot do.
mm,
And I think I guess, let me take that back. I would say there are some things that it can't do. There's nothing that it can't do. It's just a matter of how much you're willing to spend to make it happen.
sure.
I think that's what it always came down to, is like it just came down to the cost, and it at a certain point I was like, it just doesn't make sense to keep throwing this at it,
Hmm.
and only to find out that, yep, you're gonna have to keep working with a developer or keep working with a Salesforce admin to kind of not only just get it developed, but then to maintain it, you have
Hmm.
to continue to spend that effort and that time and energy. So
Yeah, absolutely. So then, um, you've now had InsuredMine for a number of years. I would love to know what Texan Insurance can do now with InsuredMine that you couldn't do before.
yeah, so I would say the first thing is we can integrate with HawkSoft. I think that was like the biggest, like easiest thing to kind of make happen, flip of a
Hmm.
switch type of deal. That was a huge win. I think our process prior to that, I mean, it took hours and it wasn't instantaneous. So being able to easily integrate was key. And then I think, as far as some of the things that Salesforce does, I think InsuredMine has in spades as well. So getting more visibility into your sales pipeline and the activity and productivity of your teams, so that you can kind of see what they're doing, what they're not doing, getting that visual. We're really big on looking at those reports and making sure that we can kind of see where our numbers stack up, month over month, year over year. So I think that was really important for us, and something that we a lot of our, not just our sales agents compensation is based off of, but a lot of our managers and supervisors, their bonus plans and everything are based off of the metrics that we see within the CRM. So
Hmm.
that was really important for us. And then I think, the thing that we're still working through and still kind of figuring out, is identifying what our standard operating procedures are going to be, and then how to incorporate InsuredMine into those processes. So I think before, we'd have to work sort of just say, hey, like whatever HawkSoft can do, that was our kind of our that's where we lived, and that's what we
Hmm.
wanted to make sure. If our rule in our agency was, if it's not in HawkSoft, it didn't happen. Um, well, now with the two-way integration, we can make sure that the automation that we have within InsuredMine, we can make sure that that information ends up back in HawkSoft, and can kick off all these automations that will allow us to basically simplify our sales and service processes to where it's really hands off, for our employees, and
Hmm.
just really just it it's sort of if it's sort of like what I was saying, like if you can dream it up, you can kind of make it happen.
Hmm.
With Salesforce, I think InsuredMine really does fit into that category, but you're playing within a box that makes more sense because it's insurance focused, and
Sure.
that was the game changer for us.
No, absolutely. I appreciate that because, um, you know, inside baseball for HawkSoft, but because we're not an insurance agency, we use a more general CRM. We use HubSpot for us. Um, but that's because we don't need specific things for the insurance industry. And I think the technology that is meant for agencies, that's built in collaboration with agencies, is going to be a little bit like it's going to be a faster. You're going to get to your ROI faster. You're going to get to your meaningful activities faster, because you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from a shared understanding of like how the industry works, how customers need to be engaged with. Like totally appreciate that. This brings us, so fair is fair. In part one, Tucker got to voice his perspective on the most difficult thing about working with insurance agencies. And so we'd like to give a similar opportunity to Rahim and our customer representative. We do like to kind of set aside price, although I know that InsuredMine is an extremely competitive product in terms of their pricing structure. But if you set price as a concept aside, because that's the easy answer to this, what is one thing that you would change about InsuredMine if you could?
Oh, good question.
That head of sales over there, they need to change that real quick.
Yeah, that's probably where I'd start.
I said it before you
You
were.
know, I think at the end of the day, and I don't know if this is just insured mind, but I think this is more of a general comment in terms of I think our industry is really, and I think we're finally starting to see things come around. But I think having more of that open, uh, uh, I guess, platform to where
Mm,
data that you want, however you want it, whenever you want it, that being available, right?
sure.
I think so when we talk about entering in prospects in any system, having that seamless integration to where you can just enter it in one spot and it's just poof, like it's just like that in every other system that you're in, whether that's your comparative rater, whether that's your agency management system. I think that's one thing that I would love to see more happening in that
Hmm.
area. And I know it's trying to get the different 100-pound gorillas in the room to kind of play nice and work nice together. I think that's probably the one area that at least from a personal line side, I think that would be a real big game changer for us.
Yeah, data mobility. And I definitely, InsuredMine has had infinite patience with HawkSoft because, and as you're aware, as one of our customers and our listeners are well aware, by the time they're listening to this, we're deep into the activity of taking all of our existing customers from our prior platform HawkSoft 5 onto HawkSoft 6. At the time of the recording of this, we've done it successfully with the first handful of agencies that were on 5 and moved them to 6. We're selling to net new customers. But as Tucker alluded to in part one, HawkSoft 6 as a completely cloud-based system is going to afford us a lot better data mobility, um, the ability to have third-party systems interact with client data in a more precise and meaningful way. So I can absolutely appreciate where you're coming from, especially an organization of your scale where you're thinking about how do we make these workflows consistent and um, consistent through multiple platforms, consistent through InsuredMine into HawkSoft, into your comparative rater, back into InsuredMine maybe for a renewal campaign. So I can definitely appreciate that. Um,
We're looking to kind of take that one step even further
mm,
and kind of look at data insights from all of our different systems and try to build sort of like a data hub almost to
sure.
be able to say, okay, well, here's the retention data in one system, here's the customer data in another system, here's how much we paid this agent on these policies that's in our accounting system. Let's try to bring all that together and see if we learn any new insights from that, right?
Yeah.
So being able to be in a position to where we could have access to that in real time and up to date on a regular basis, I think that's really where the world is going now. I mean,
Hmm.
it's kind of been heading in that direction for a little while, but I think more and more, if you're trying to really scale your business, having that data and the insights on that data, I think is really, really key.
Raheem,
Absolutely.
I think you brought up a good point. You said where the world is going. It's not just insurance agency world that's trying to look at profitability, right? And it's trying to look at scale. When money was really cheap and
Hmm.
opportunities were huge, and employment is really hard to or really easy to find. We could play a different game, but in this current market that we're in, that's pretty hard. We have to look at things differently and become really efficient, and at the end of the day, look at more profitability as opposed to just growth at all costs.
Hmm.
I think that's a focus we have internally at InsuredMine, as well as how can we dashboard and report for our agencies. We're dumping a heavy majority of our development time in Q4 into a lot of that dashboarding and reporting. So huge thing that I'm sure people are trying to figure out on the other side of this podcast, just like Rahim is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just so, I mean, like you said before, you could kind of get away with stuff, but I think this environment, you're really having to um, learn more about your business than you had to before, to really understand what is driving the results, the good results and the bad results, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think before you could kind of just wing it and, hey, revenue's up, revenue's down, profitability's up, profitability's down, and then not go any further than that. But now you're really having to, you got to understand why, because you have to make really critical decisions now.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's, how much staff you need to maintain that book of business, or just other things that just are living inside of all of these systems, right? I mean, the data is there. It's just having access to that data when you want it and how you want it is really going to
Mm-hmm.
be that game changer.
Absolutely. I look forward to clipping this section and sending it to our CTO, who I know will agree with us. But it's always nice to have it from an agency's perspective, because I think it is something meaningful, and it is something that a lot of technology companies are looking towards. Um, and it is one of the great things about the partnerships that HawkSoft is able to cultivate is we have a very open perspective on data, and we attract partners that have that similar perspective. So hopefully it won't be too long until we can actualize that dream. My last question for you, Rahim, is how would you describe the value that InsuredMine brings to Texan Insurance?
Great question. It's hard to put a number to things like that,
Mm-hmm.
just because they basically become ingrained into everything that we do on the sales side of our organization. And here
Mm-hmm.
very soon, probably by the time people hear this podcast, will be ingrained into basically the service side of our organization as well.
Mm-hmm.
We've been slow to kind of roll things out. We're just being a little methodical and making sure that we talked a lot about standard operating procedures, and I think this is giving us that time to make sure that we internally are prepared for a rollout across the organization. So, it's really making us kind of really, like we were talking about earlier, just understand our business better, understand what our clients are looking for, what our employees need from the system. So I look at InsuredMine as an integral part of who we are as a company.
Mm-hmm.
And we literally build things around that system. So just like we do around HawkSoft, I mean, it's, the technology stack within your organization has become extremely, extremely vital to the success of your business. And if you look at it as an asset as opposed to a liability,
Mm-hmm.
you can take advantage of a lot of the things and tools that they provide. But it takes sort of like that insight and that vision to say, hey, this is how we do things today, knowing what the system can do tomorrow and what it can do today. What does that process need to look like? What
Mm-hmm.
does that customer or client experience want, and what can it be? So I think, it's just a matter of really taking some time and energy to really evaluate who you are as a company and who you're trying to be. And I think with I was talking a little earlier about how it's sort of like a blank slate,
Mm-hmm.
Salesforce is. I think InsuredMine is a very similar system in the sense that you can really, if you can dream it up, you can kind of make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that aspect of it, because it really does allow you to be creative, and really make things work for what makes sense for your business. Because not, as we've seen, no two agencies are very similar. You could talk to an agency down the street and they just do things very differently, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what works for them. So, as you're looking at and evaluating CRMs or any technology platform, um, I, I really value technology that allows you to kind of be who you are, as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
trying to fit to whatever they want you to be. So,
Absolutely.
um, yeah.
Well, I can really appreciate that.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better. With working with 1,000+ agencies today, may have the same revenue, maybe the same policies in force, but operates completely different. So again, going back to the figure out what's important to you, kind of understand what the best journey is for your customer base, or sets of customer bases, and kind of outline what your different segments might be, and then look for technology partners that can meet the needs of that, would be the go-to.
It's not every day that I probably have emails from I don't know how many of you do, but I get emails on a regular basis from InsuredMine developers working on things that they're working on just for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, we're helping move the needle forward for InsuredMine and HawkSoft users for that
Mm-hmm.
matter, right? Because we want to make sure that that integration is as tight as can be. And so they're willing partners, and I think
Yeah.
on both sides, right? I mean, I think that's what's really exciting about where we're going, and why I couldn't be happier with the choice that we made. Just because if you were trying to work with someone that didn't have that mindset, I mean, just imagine it's just like, chalk on a or nails on a chalkboard, just trying to get
Yeah.
anything done. I mean, I wouldn't be able to withstand that. So having willing partners that that are open to your ideas, and know that you've got the best interests of the customer base at heart, and
Mm-hmm.
our clients at heart, I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, love that, Rahim. And Kenny, going back to your talk track at the beginning, Texan is a name that you hear frequently. Fridays on our leadership call, it's very rare that they don't get brought up in some respect. And for us, as a company, we're not owned by PE. We're not, heavily invested in by some VC firm. Our customers are our biggest boss, and you got one of our bigger bosses on the call today. So, that, and we see that as an advantage, right?
Yeah.
The folks that are, in the weeds every day, trying to operate in a better way, are the folks that are going to help us build the platform in the right way that we can teach to other agencies. So we see that as a huge opportunity to take top customers' feedback, build that
Yeah.
into the platform, and then take that to the market of, hey, this is how you should be thinking about things.
Yeah. I always I tend to be a lightning rod for customer feedback, and I always tell every customer, like, please continue doing this. Never shy away from giving us your thoughts, because while in both sides of organizations there is hands-on or secondary experience in the insurance world, we're not active agents, and we have to listen to independent agents, agency owners, agency staff, admins. We have to listen to them to understand what are the actual pain points, because you have to address those business needs. One of the things that I hate about technology is when companies manufacture problems and then introduce their product as a solution. It's like, no, we should be solving actual problems. And so that's why I actually genuinely, I was completely joking saying that I hide from Jordan, who handles a lot of the IT work at Texan, because he always pushes us, and feedback from Rahim always pushes us, and it pushes us to be better. And so I completely agree. I love this. I've loved this conversation intensely. I hope our listeners have appreciated it as well, because this has been. I was so glad, Rahim, when you agreed to be on this, because I promise it's not flattery. We actually do say, like, oh, what is Texan up to? What are they? This feedback came from them. That matters, because you're a forward-thinking organization. So I am grateful, Rahim, for your time today, taking away from your agency and away from your customers to talk with us and help the industry. Tucker, thank you as well for being here. Thank you for watching today's episode. Click the video description below to learn more about our guests and to view the latest podcast episode, as well as other content from HawkSoft. We appreciate you watching and hope you join us next time on the Insurance Perspectives podcast. Thank you.